This is Husker Online, your authority on Nebraska athletics. In this weekly show, the Husker Online team will give you the latest insight on Husker football, basketball, baseball, and of course, recruiting. Now, here's your host, Husker Online publisher Sean Callahan.
Hello here, and welcome again to another edition of the Husker Online podcast. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, Robin Washut, somewhere in Iowa, Sip.
Somewhere in Iowa, so let's do this anyway.
Yeah, he's working his way back, holiday break.
Yeah, it's hard to work your way back from Iowa.
So he's trying to get back.
Croatia.
Covering Iowa, Nebraska basketball, obviously, coming up Thursday. It's a sellout Thursday night. So big bat, but we're not going to.
Sold out?
Yeah. So Seamus McKnight announced that the game is sold out, but I want to get to this out of the gates here. Big headline of the week: Garrett Nelson announces he will not be back, and there had been smoke really on this since the Iowa game. I mean, like, you kind of knew something was going on, just because he hadn't really publicly embraced the new hire, hadn't really made any kind of statement of any kind, and then all of a sudden we now know why. I mean, there was talk about Garrett Nelson going in the portal.
Yes.
There was talk about Garrett Nelson going pro,
right,
or staying, and he's going to go pro.
Right.
And the decision was met with a lot of debate.
Was it?
But when you look at it, he started 32 games at Nebraska. I mean, that's like a lot of games. That's like a Neil Smith career.
3 seasons, basically. I mean, if you break it down. Yeah, and he had a good year last year. He was a very good college player. He had 65 tackles, I believe was the final total, 9 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks. He's a special teams player. He's a very good college player. He was second team all Big Ten. Sean, he's not a surefire draft pick, but he might get drafted. He must be hearing something pretty good from the NFL.
I'm curious what, like, draft all-star games, if any, he'd be in line for, because he is eligible. You know, he is technically a graduate, a senior, and that's what's hard for the fans to understand. Like, he's played 4 years of football. Like, he didn't redshirt.
Yeah,
like,
he'll be 23 on March 1. He'll be 23.
He's played in 43 games.
Okay, yeah.
And, you know, if the COVID year was a full year, he would have 47 games.
Okay.
He played 8 games in 2020. So, yeah, it's a big loss. I mean,
hey, listen now. Let's talk about that part. When you sent me, Abby, I was working really hard yesterday, and when you sent me the text, I thought my initial reaction was body blow. That's a body blow to the defense, because you couple that with O'Shawn Mathis leaving, and then you figure in Caleb Tanner leaving, and the edge rusher position is pretty much decimated. Now, some people are going to be going, okay, you guys are really being sort of alarmist here. No, not being an alarmist. I mean, those 3 guys were men, played a lot of football. I mean, O'Shawn not at Nebraska, but he played a lot of football. That was an all Big 12 player, O'Shawn Mathis. Second team all Big 10 player, Garrett Nelson. Caleb Tanner never missed a game. Captain. Now you're dropping down to Jamari Butler and Blaze Gunnerson. In fact, Sean,
and Chief Borders, the transfer.
Chief Borders, and I'd go get another.
Well, they have Kai Whalen, and he's kind of an edge DN type guy.
Shuko.
And the hard part about things now is we don't really know how they're going to kind of develop the scheme. You know, like where is a Kai Whalen? Is he an edge guy? Is he defensive lineman?
Because it's not necessarily going to be a 3-3-5, which Rule covered in his early signing day press conference. He said it's not necessarily going to be a 3-3-5. We'll see what the personnel dictates, right?
Yeah, like Isaac Gifford, you know, what's his role in this kind of defense? Is he more of a linebacker now?
Still could be a nickel.
Is he a nickel? I mean, and there's a lot, Javin Wright. I mean, there's a lot of intriguing characters in this defense now for Nebraska. But, yeah, the D-line, like Kai Whalen is somebody that you wonder where he fits. Like Elijah Judy is a D lineman. He's 300 pounds. Like, he's big. Nash Outmacher, Ty Robinson, Stephon Wynn, we think they're all back.
Do you think Wynn will be back?
Well, where's he going to go? Like, pro or just
Drew's not back though.
Yeah, Devin Drew's done.
Yeah, but
he's just, and it's kind of confusing because, like,
It is confusing.
Chancellor Brewington announced like he was going to the pros. Well, Chancellor Brewington played 6 years of college football.
It's
like,
really confusing.
what did I miss here?
Yeah, nothing. It's confusing.
Like, why are guys that played 6 years of college football announcing they're going to the pros?
Because eligibility is
everyone's confused.
right. I mean, Garrett Nelson had that pretty good quote in August at Big Ten Media Days. Was that August or late July? Late July, where he said, you know what? He said this. He said, I don't know how many years of eligibility I have left. He goes, it's because of he was speaking to that sort of confusion. So anyway, yeah, Garrett Nelson opting early for the NFL is a blow. He could he rescind and come back if he?
I don't think. I mean, the way that statement read, it's over.
Generally, it doesn't happen anyway.
I mean, he's probably training. He's moving off somewhere to train, is my guess.
Yeah, we should probably try to get a hold of him.
I texted with him and just congratulated him. And I actually, out of just the day he made his announcement, I texted him and said, "Hey, did you have an idea when you were going to make an announcement?" Well, not even knowing he was making it like 2 hours.
Maybe that's what spurred it.
what led to 2 hours later him making his announcement? Then I'm like, well, now I know he was making his announcement at that point. But all right, in other headline news, Nebraska gets Ben Scott, another coup
Big time.
for the offensive line coach, Donovan Raiola. And, when he came on his trip to Nebraska, it was a surprise. I think the other surprise was Dominic Raiola was with him on the trip. Now, Dominic is from St. Louis. That's where Ben Scott went.
St. Louis, Hawaii.
St. Louis High School in Honolulu.
Thank you. St. Louis
Donovan did not go to St. Louis. He went to another rival high school in Honolulu. I was corrected. I assumed the both Raiola brothers went to St. Louis. They did not.
Okay.
But they're all from Honolulu. They have the Nebraska connection because Ben Scott's mother, Cheryl Randbor.
Yeah, Rambor, that's it. From Columbus.
It's from Columbus.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of great listeners to the Husker Online Show from Columbus, and you are from the great town.
Yeah, and she's a grade ahead of me. I didn't know Cheryl very well. She was in my brother's grade. She was a grade ahead.
We'll have to have Cheryl on the show just to tell her what she knows about Steve Sipp.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a good idea. Let's not do that, in fact. How about we not do that? Good. Well, we talked about it, and it's done. We're not doing it. Anyway, yeah, huge get. I mean, Sean, ostensibly you're looking at your starting center, right?
1,800 career snaps, but he transitioned from right tackle to center.
And started at center for Arizona State last year, 11 games.
And there was some intrigue, like, oh, could he play right? No, they want him as a center. And he wants to play center because that's his pro position.
Yeah, you interviewed him.
And the Raiolas are both centers, Dominic and Donovan. And they obviously, Dominic played in the NFL. Donovan was in the NFL too for a little bit, right? Like a year.
Donovan, absolutely. He played in 2009 for the Bears. I don't know how we're on the depth chart we're talking, but yeah, he played a couple years
but
in the NFL.
I think that connection, along with the Nebraska connection, I mean, Ben Scott went to the camp at Nebraska twice. I mean, he went here in 2016 and 2017. Right. I remember seeing him here, but just wasn't on the radar. Just was not going to get an offer to Nebraska at that point.
He was only a 3-star, but he put himself. I mean, this is obviously a player who developed well at Arizona State. I mean, he did start a season at right tackle, like you mentioned, and then moved to center and started a season. He maybe started 3 seasons, but for 2 for sure. So you're getting a tested player, a mature player. So, I mean, it's gigantic. Now, you're going to keep hearing me say this. They need to go in and probably get another portal player.
We broke it down in the chat this week. They probably have, I would say, 6 game usable bodies.
Well, that's not enough in my opinion, Sean.
Like, can you go? I mean, I can't find 7 there. Can you?
Oh, unless there's
unless you put Hunter Miller in there. Do you consider Hunter Miller?
Hunter Anthony.
Hunter Anthony. Excuse me.
Yeah. Where's Ezra Miller?
Ezra Miller, still a walk-on, kind of buried behind those other guys.
Hunter Anthony played this year, then got moved out. I would like to think that Hunter Anthony could get to the level where he can help them, in a good way. They're light there. They're light on the offensive line. 6 isn't enough.
Prohaska, Newelly, Corcoran, Ben Scott, Bryce Benhart, Ethan Piper. That's your 6.
There you go. You got
Hunter Anthony is a 7th.
Okay. Need another one.
And yeah, you can't put a freshman out there.
No. You're bringing in these guys, these 5. I mean, it could be 5 offensive linemen, depending what you do with a couple of them. A couple of them could play defensive line, but
you don't want to play them that early.
no, you just assume not.
That's half the problem with Nebraska.
Right.
They have played too many guys early in their career, and it's made it hard.
I'd like to know what Rule's thinking now. I think we'll get a crack at the assistants in coming days, and that would be a great question for instance, for Donovan. I mean, were you going to the portal for somebody else? It'd be a good question for Satterfield, right? Marcus Satterfield. Where are you looking in the portal? Man, when I look at this roster, Sean, I see portal needs, I do. I don't know where you see him, but I see him inside linebacker depth. I see him up front on defense. You don't know what Colton Feast is going to do, right?
He hasn't made a decision yet, and
he's huge, Sean. That's an every game starter this year.
And he's still a walk-on. I mean, that's the thing that's interesting.
Technically a walk-on.
I mean, he's on an NIL.
Yeah. He's better than scholarship players they've had. I'd take him over Casey Rogers, for instance.
And in the old days, they would call it he's on a county scholarship.
Yeah.
I mean, he's basically on scholarship. But
he's proven to be a better player than those 2 guys that went to Oregon.
Yeah, and he was better than Wynn and Drew.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, he was.
And I guarantee you, Wynn and Drew were not cheap to get here in terms of NIL.
Probably not. Colton, his decision, I don't want to say it's as big as Garrett's, but it's not that far behind. That's a big decision. I hope he's coming back. We got to find that out.
January 16th. That is the day. The deadline is for the portal. It's the day NFL deadline for guys, and it's also the day before workouts start.
Say that again.
January 16th
is the day what?
NFL
the portal closes.
The portal closes. The draft deadline, and it's the day before workouts begin in Nebraska.
So technically, if you declared for the draft, you have until January 16th. You could say, "Okay, I'm not doing it."
Yeah, I mean, Garrett Nelson could withdraw.
Yeah,
and I think
you don't sign with an agent, maybe.
Don't you think now in the NIL world, it's a little easier to kind of get around some of those benefits that you would get on your name?
Yeah.
Where before, if you signed with an agent, they gave you a car or whatever they gave you, like that you couldn't really get out of that. Now you can, I think. I mean, it's an NIL deal,
right?
I mean,
but again, let's establish something. You don't expect Garrett to be back, nor do I. Nor do I.
I never had a good feeling. The way he left the field at Iowa, it just didn't. It felt like that was it. You saw him.
Yeah.
You saw him walk that field.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
He
was elated.
Yeah, and it just felt like I had been through hell and back. This is the moment I want to end on.
Okay.
That's how it felt to me.
Okay. That makes sense.
All right, when we come back, we are going to they announced 9. They didn't announce, but they list now 9 new members of the staff. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into Chancellor Ronnie Green's decision to retire, what that might mean and why. Next, you're listening here to the Husker Online Show.
You're listening to HuskerOnline.com, your authority on Nebraska athletics.
And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple, as we're going to get into some of these additions made or official additions that have been made on the staff. But before we get to that, this segment of the Husker Online Show brought to you by Tanner's Sports Bar and Grill, also Tavern 180, next door neighbor on 30th and Yankee Hill Road. If you're looking for a place to watch bowl games, no better spot than Tanner's. You're going to get great wings, great service, TVs everywhere, all the games on, all the feeds of everything. That's Tanner's Sports Bar and Grill, 30th and Yankee Hill Road, proud sponsor here of the Husker Online Show. But Sip, they announced 9 new hires for Nebraska this week, and not really announced, they now list them.
Yeah, they didn't announce them. You announced them.
We just put it together, checking that directory. But, it's interesting because we know, obviously, now they've made 8 of the 11 coach hires, and that's counting the strength coach. Okay. We don't know who the receivers coach is.
Right.
We don't know who the tight ends coach is. We don't know who the linebackers coach is. Right. We're waiting on those. We think Bob Wager could be the tight ends coach. That's a hunch.
Yeah, he is the coach, the Texas
Arlington Martin.
Yeah, Arlington Martin. Thank you.
But now official, Adam DeMichael, offensive analyst. Omar Hales, director of player personnel and high school relations. Mike Wallace, director of scouting. Now, those three gentlemen have already been heavily involved. You've seen them on social media. Now, Jarrett Wishone is the assistant to the head coach, and this one kind of is interesting to me, Sip, because he's not really a coach. I mean, it sounds like he's more like the head of cartel security. I mean,
Interesting way to put it.
I mean, he worked for the ATF.
Yes, he did.
And he was a detective with the Charlotte police.
Yeah, I guess he falls under the category of good guy to have around.
Yeah, but I'll be curious what his role is. He joined Rule in Carolina, and he'll follow him here. But, when you have these large budgets to put staffs together, you got a lot of wiggle room to bring in different areas of people you want to bring in.
Sure.
James Hess, Associate Director of Football Strength and Conditioning. Tyler Miles, another assistant strength coach. Both these guys come with interesting backgrounds. Hess worked at Baylor with Corey Campbell. Miles worked at a number of places, including Duke and Miami. And then he trained guys for the combine. So those are kind of like your number two strength coaches or backup strength coaches. Phil Simpson, the former head coach of Miami Homestead High School, played for Matt Rule. He will be defensive quality control. I like this hire.
Yeah, you like it because the guy coached at Homestead High School and he was 23-4 over his final two seasons.
And just the ability to go into Miami and speak the language. And we know the history. Nebraska had bad luck with Miami recruiting under Frost.
Okay. So why do you think it'll be better?
I think it'll be better.
Because COVID's not around anymore?
That, and they actually have somebody now with legit contacts and feel for what's going on down there. It's a different world.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, you feel like you're in a different country when you go to Miami.
Yeah.
And
so you still got to convince me that you can pull players out of there, but what you're talking about is keeping them here. Right?
Yeah, and
when I say COVID, I know COVID's still around. What I'm saying is they had a lot of trouble with those guys from Miami when they came up here, and there was the classes were all online, everything was shut down, and here are these guys from Florida wandering around like, what do we do?
like they were in China.
Yeah.
I mean, literally.
Yes, seriously.
That's what it feels.
Yeah, it was a very abnormal situation. Now, maybe with some degree of normalcy coming back, the university experience being normalized, maybe you have a better shot at keeping those guys around, especially, Sean, if you're winning.
I've talked to some people about this. Like, they used to bring these kids up in January, high school kids.
Uh-huh.
And I think there's a thought now, especially kids that are from, like, the warmer climates, like, just get them up here in May and June. I mean, Lincoln, Nebraska in May and June is a wonderful place.
It's a world of difference than it is right now.
Girls are wearing short shorts and baseball games are going. I mean, it just a whole different deal, right?
I suppose. Yeah.
You bring guys up here in
It's warmer.
You bring guys up here in January.
Whoa.
It's a whole.
Yeah. It's Siberia.
And
it's dirty snow, and it's
salts everywhere.
And it gets dark at 2 p.m. That sounded really bleak. Okay, the other one on this one that's interesting, Matt Rule has hired a general manager.
Sean Patton.
General manager. Now, we don't know what that picture looks like. Is that chief of staff, basically?
I look at this as like Jared's job.
Jared Lambert.
Yeah, what he used to do for Frost. And he's got a corporate background, which Jared Lamprick did before he started working. So I think these jobs are so big, it's more than football, and we know that.
Okay, now here's my question. And we haven't talked about this publicly or privately. Is this Billy Devaney? Billy Devaney was a general manager for Mike, basically, right?
Billy Devaney. I call them Devaney.
Yeah, Devaney.
He had a scouting background, a personnel background. This is not that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Billy Devaney was involved in
recruiting,
personnel decisions, right?
Well, it got heated. I'll never forget this. Like, Billy Devaney told Mike Cavanaugh that he had to start Matt Farniak at guard over Tanner Farmer when Farniak wasn't ready yet. And it was a disaster. And then they ended up having to go back to Tanner Farmer during the same week.
But Billy Devaney wielded that kind of power?
Yes.
Wow.
And it caused a lot of tension.
I'll bet it did.
I don't see that being – Billy Devaney played a factor in firing Mark Banker
Yes, he did.
and hiring Bob Diaco.
There you go.
And then finally, Kevin McGarry. What do you think of this one?
Kevin McGarry. Well, he's a veteran.
He's Tony White's guy.
This has been a head coach. He was a head coach at San Diego, FCS San Diego. He was the head coach before Harbaugh was the head coach at San Diego. So he was 39 and 38 as San Diego's head coach. And we're talking 96. 1996. This is a veteran. This is a veteran.
That's a $200,000 a year analyst. That's my read right there.
Yeah.
Like when you look at I think most people are like, what's the pay of these guys? I think Patton's probably the highest.
Yeah. You think he's making north of 200?
Well, Jared Lamprecht made $400,000 as chief of staff. So you got to think that job is in the 3 to 4 range.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yes, I would. It'll be interesting to get those numbers.
Kevin McGarry would probably be in the 2s because he's a really high up analyst in the hierarchy of analysts. He's going to be the highest there's going to be. The other jobs I think are probably going to be in that 1 to 200 range in most of these cases.
Still quite a bit of money.
Yeah, you put it in perspective. In Bo Pelini's final year, there was only one coach that made over 6 figures. It was Jeff Jambrock.
Hey, let's revisit that for a second. I think this is a time of year where people like to hear about that Billy Devaney story. That was fascinating. Bo, I don't mind saying this, Bo wanted a structure like this and was denied. He wanted
By iCourse, right?
Yeah, he wanted the recruiting operation to expand. He presented a plan that was shot down. It was shot down by
because they didn't want it to work.
They absolutely didn't want it to work. That stuff needs to be said. They didn't want Bo to work. It got to that point, and that was the sort of frustration that overflowed.
And you do things in recruiting like you cut out private jets.
Yeah.
And just
you can jack with a head coach. AD can really jack with a head coach.
We saw that a little bit with Frost and Trev at the end. With private jet usage. Eric Chenander and coaches had to, drive. They couldn't get a hotel room in Omaha. They had to drive back to Lincoln late night, then drive back to Omaha at 6 a.m. the next day.
Yeah, that's being a good steward.
That kind of stuff like that it gets in the head of coaches.
I said that winking, by the way. You wonder how much of that is sending a message a little bit.
And finally, I want to get on this topic. Ronnie Green announces retirement.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot there. I think when you really get in the hood of this conversation.
Yeah, there is.
Jim Pillen, former Husker player, board regent, now new governor, was in odds with Ronnie Green over some of his critical race and other things that he pushed through the university. It was very public. I'm not saying anything that's not out there already. And now Jim Pillen's the governor. Uh-huh. And now Ronnie Green retires.
Then there's the other part which Ronnie talked about publicly is that he lost his dad. His dad, I believe, was 59 and didn't get a chance to see the grandkids get raised. And I think Ronnie always had that in the back of his mind that, he wants to be able to have that part of his life going forward. Now, the thing I'd say about Ronnie in the sports realm is I think you'd agree, Sean, Ronnie was a big fan. He was very active in the sporting realm.
His wife as well.
Yeah, but here's a difference between Ronnie and a lot of a few administrators that came before him. He didn't politicize that position in terms of athletics, I didn't think. He kind of stayed out of it. He did what he was supposed to do, We
saw it with Perlman, though, with
he got involved.
The Ron Brown prayers.
Well, Harvey,
Bo Pelini having the priest on the plane.
Yeah, it got sort of political with Harvey at times, and he made some really bad decisions. Ronnie he managed situations. He didn't thrust himself into them. Is that a good way to put it? So that, I thought Ronnie showed restraint, whereas some administrators here since the late 90s didn't show.
Now in 2019,
mainly Harvey. Let's face it. Generally speaking, we're talking about the former Chancellor Harvey Perlman. And come on, he was. And people say, "Well, okay, Sipple, you're being a little unfair here." No. Here he was the common denominator throughout the struggle. throughout the program's being decimated.
Well, and Osborne
he was a common denominator.
Osborne bailed them out, got Nebraska in the Big Ten.
Then they pushed
And they pushed Osborne out.
Yeah.
I mean, so like that's a whole.
It was just disgusting, sort of.
And hired I-Course without letting Osborne know anything about it.
Yeah, which isn't. Now that part of it, Sean, I understand that to a certain extent.
But did he tell Osborne he'd have a say?
Well, there you go.
Did he tell
There
him?
you go.
That's the other.
Yeah.
And I think he did.
I think he did, and then he didn't. Then he didn't follow through on it.
So.
Oh, they were all. I mean, we're not speaking. This is not. I will tell the listeners this. This is not. We're not gossiping at this point. We were very. I mean, I was very
in the
tune
middle
with that. Yeah, I mean, Bo Pelini was adamant about this whole thing. Like we had no idea what was going on. We were not made aware, and so they knew. And by the way, when that's happening, Sean, Bo knows his fate at that point. Pretty much, his staff begins to know.
Which is why Bo was looking at jobs.
Well, and why he was paranoid all the time. You know, I mean, and still won games.
Won back-to-back weeks at Michigan and Penn State on the road.
Yeah, it was hell
With Ron Kellogg at quarterback.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, let's get in.
Interesting times.
We'll come back. Abby Warmar is going to join us. We're doing 2 mailbag segments.
Oh my God.
So Abby will be on a lot longer, and we got a lot of questions here. You're listening to the Husker Online Show.
You're listening to HuskerOnline.com, your authority on Nebraska athletics.
And we're back here on the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple. Joining us now, Abby Barmore, as we take your questions in the mailbag. And no, Robin, and we get so many good questions, we can never get through very many. So let's do 2.
Okay.
Let's do 2.
2 mailbags.
So Abby, what do you got to lead us off in the mailbag?
All right, our first one. What remaining roster needs are there now that early signing day is done?
Tight end, I would say, is one.
Hold on. Stop there. They have a pretty long list of guys. A.J. Rollins, Borkature, James Carney.
Yeah, but who's
Thomas Fedoni.
so you're banking on Fedoni being healthy and ready.
Okay.
And Borkature kind of being the other guy.
And then A.J. Rollins.
And A.J. Rollins.
Are we sure? Like, I got to looking at that tight end depth chart the other day. I'm like, wait a second. They got a bunch of guys.
I'm going off of what they're doing in the portal. They're pursuing portal tight ends. Like that's what my read is. But they're going after portal tight ends. Everyone's going after. Like the guys they're offering get like 20 offers.
Who am I missing in that crowd, by the way? Oh, like Tagovailoa?
Is he going to be a tight end?
Well, he's listed as a tight end.
That's what he wanted to be.
And I probably botched his name.
Tagaloa.
So there's a list.
That was like a random Tony Tuioti out of nowhere take, and then Tony Tuioti just left.
So where else? Defensive line, Sean. I mean, I think you got to go get somebody, right? Right.
And we've talked about an O lineman.
Another. I mean, they got Elijah Judy up front, but I think you got to get another one.
And they're at 90 scholarship players today, but they'll get down. Like every year, people like freak out about being over. Don't freak out. They'll get to 85.
Well, part of the reason you don't freak out now is NIL, right?
Yeah. Well, and like
you might not run off a guy now because you can say to him, okay, you're not going to technically be on scholarship, but we can still pay you.
There's a lot of guys on here though, like Tyreek Johnson. Is he going to really play a 6-year college football? Braxton Clark. Is he going to play a 6-year college football?
I mean, wouldn't Braxton Clark maybe say, look, I'm going to try to give this one more go.
Yeah, but what if they're not in the mix to play and travel?
Right.
Like, so there's a lot of guys in that camp. When you look at the older scholar, like Omar Brown, is he healthy? Can he play? Like, we don't know. You go up and down.
So to answer the question, where else would you go? You said tight end. Where else would you go? Where else do you think they need to go for the portal? I said defensive line, which
like a pass rusher.
Yeah, pass rusher. And then on the offensive line, I think they need 1 or 2 more bodies.
I think they're good in the secondary right now.
Yeah, I do. I do too.
But yeah.
What about running back?
Well, A.J. Allen appears to be staying. Like, that's good, right?
It appears to be, definitely. Yeah. What about that starter?
Anthony Grant,
yeah,
still staying.
Okay.
As we know.
You have Gabe Irvin.
Ramir Johnson could reemerge.
Ramir, I think will benefit from Applewhite being gone. Is what
That
that's
was
my read. That's my read.
A bad picture there for him, wasn't it?
Well, I think Applewhite was the impetus to Ramir moving to receiver when he really didn't want to. And it was, I think Applewhite, from what I've heard, it was more Applewhite wanted him to play receiver, not running back. And I think the way I understand it was sort of a compromise. Like, now, wait a second, Ramir's a running back, so we're going to play them both at least.
Yeah, that thing got off the tracks pretty quick.
Well, I just think Applewhite taking that job wasn't good for Ramir's. My read on it.
Because he wanted his guys, which A.J. Allen's good.
Yeah. Oh, A.J.
And
Allen.
Anthony Grant,
It's good.
when he has a good guy with him, is good.
Yeah.
But Anthony Grant taking 30 carries a week in the Big Ten,
Well, it was rough.
well, no one can do that. Who does that in the league?
Well,
Chase Brown got hurt. He tried to do it.
Mo Ibrahim could do it.
Yeah,
He could do it.
his career's like over probably after Minnesota.
Well, he's 33, so I mean,
What do you got? What do you got next, Abby?
What is Matt Rule and his staff's recruiting pitch?
ooh.
24 is ours. That's the thing they keep doing on social media. By the way, what do you think of all that? Like
What?
the social media kind of cryptic game that's going on.
It's the times. It's the times.
I mean, is it just like I joked to you, it's basically being like, we're getting Dylan Raiola and we're so excited about it that we're just playing a cryptic Twitter game about it right now.
Could be some of that.
I mean, it just feels that way, but
it doesn't strike me as something Ohio State would do or Alabama would do or Georgia would do, but I guess we're not Ohio State. Georgia,
Rule has
Alabama.
gotten real busy on Twitter.
Yeah.
He really has.
That's all right. I mean, I don't. It obviously isn't my style, but
That's the times.
yeah, it's the times. It's the times.
The pitch, though, is come to a. I mean, this is Nebraska. Like, we're in the Big Ten. We're coached by an NFL head coach now.
Development
To the next level.
Yeah, I think a big pitch that Matt Rule can espouse is development because he has the background to do it. He can point to players, a lot of them, that he developed that weren't highly recruited guys that are playing in the NFL. So I think a lot of the pitch is development. We can develop you.
Which coaching position gives you the most concern or feeling of unknown going into the season?
Offensive coordinator.
Yeah, because Satterfield, until the last couple of weeks, it wasn't really going well at South Carolina.
Yeah, exactly. That's a lot of it. And some of it has nothing to do with quality. It's just the unknown. What's it going to look like? I mean, when you listen to Rule, he's not talking about like a spread offense, and he's not talking about throwing it around a yard that much. He's talking about running the ball with a big offensive line, playing like Michigan.
And Jeff Sims is 6'4", 220, and they want him to run it.
Yeah. So just what it'll look like is not that I'm not saying Marcus Satterfield can't coach. He's obviously proven himself at a high level. I love the fact that Satterfield's been a head coach, even if he's 6-16.
Tennessee State, right?
Yeah, or Tech. I think it was Tech. 6-16 wasn't. It didn't go good. He got fired, but he was a head coach, which shows a level of organization. And the fact he was able to go before an AD and get a head coaching job. I like that. But that's the one. I feel very good about the defensive coordinator. But again, there's questions about that too. I mean, they gave up points. Syracuse gave up points to good teams this year. I mean, if you look down that schedule, but he's definitely an up and coming young coach.
Tony White,
yeah.
I feel like the offense, though, I think Rule is going to have a huge say in a lot of it. Like, he's not calling the plays as we know, but he's going to be heavily involved in it.
I think so.
There's people I've talked to that know what's kind of going on here. I think Rule is going to have a heavy grip on a lot of things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's that type of coach.
Who's drafted first in the NFL draft, Mathis or Nelson?
Probably O'Shawn.
Why do you think that?
I think he's a little longer, levered, and
He'll look good in testing.
like that Iowa game for O'Shawn was really good. I mean, he had 9 pressures in that game.
Let's say this, though. I mean, let's be honest. There's no guarantee that either of them will get drafted.
Are they around like
6'7".
6'7"-ish?
Yep. 6'7".
Trey Palmer, he could go anywhere from like 3 to 6, right?
Hard to read that one.
Because receivers are.
Well, there's a lot of them.
I mean, you look at like the
A lot of good
Chiefs.
ones. Well, there's a lot of
The
good
Chiefs let go of Tyreek Hill, and they just find other guys.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of guys like that out there.
But there's not a lot of guys that run like him. Now, the question with him will be physicality. You saw what Illinois did. They beat him up a little bit. They made it tougher at the line of scrimmage.
Well, in case he got hurt.
Yeah, that's true too. But Palmer has elite speed. I mean, there's not that many guys we've covered, Sean, where you could build a game plan around just his ability to beat corners deep,
To outrun everybody.
How many guys can you point to over the years that could do that? Not many.
Well, and think about Iowa. Who's done that? No one does that to Iowa.
That was a very aggressive game plan that you could execute because you had a guy that ran a 10-2-100.
All right, when we come back, we're going to continue the mailbag segment. More questions. You're listening to the Husker Online Show.
This is HuskerOnline.com, your authority on Nebraska athletics.
And we're back here on the Husker Online Show, mailbag segment, part 2. Abby, you're getting more time today. You better take advantage of it. What do you got next?
All right, to kick it off, what about Matt Rule gives you the most optimism, and what is your biggest concern?
Most optimism for me, Sip, is his level of detail, organization, CEO-like skills. And let's be honest, there hasn't really been a coach with that since Callahan.
There hasn't.
Callahan had faults, but he had
Not a lot of them.
he had a lot of things
His fault was Cosgrove.
in politics. He didn't have Osborne.
Right.
But Callahan built a model that was going to work.
I agree.
It needed 1 or 2 more years. It was going to work because it almost won both, like 2 Big 12s with the players.
I know. When you look back on the Callahan regime, there's no doubt you look back more favorably, if only because he was over 500. I think he was 27 and 22.
I mean, they fired him a year after the Cotton Bowl. Think
Right.
about that now.
I do think about it. Believe me. I mean, and I'm not dogging Cosgrove. We've covered this, but Cosgrove came from a world, the Big Ten, that was immensely different than the Big 12.
No spread offense yet.
And the Big 12 back then was real spread out. Like it was
It was like Texas high school football.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was.
right. And it was more novel back then too. It wasn't something that has now just become big spread team, great. What I like most about Rule is what he has said. Just something more particular, I guess, is that he will adapt the offense to the environment. You know, he talked about, it's cold here. There's ice on the field. We got to run. We got to be able to run. We have to. I'm gonna make this fit the environment. That is something that, again, Bo didn't do that. Riley sure the hell didn't do that. Frost sure the hell didn't do that.
Remember Frost trying to run his offense against Michigan? Hey, remember Frost trying to run his offense against Michigan State?
Yeah.
In 2018.
Yeah.
And
I do remember. It was freezing cold.
Everybody knew you couldn't throw.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, we're going to come out and try to run our offense. And the ball just dropped.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't even get the ball.
So Rule's saying he's speaking Osborne's language now. Osborne geared his whole offense with a lot of it with the weather in mind. All right? Because we're not going to be able to throw the ball around in November. And everybody almost forgot about that.
Well, we got lucky. There's been some nice Novembers.
I guess, yeah.
No, I mean, this year was
true. It's true.
Like 2018 was bad.
Yeah.
2022 was bad.
Yeah.
Everything in between, even COVID, when we played December, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, think about the Wisconsin game this year, though. How was it throwing the ball on that day? What did that ball look like that Mertz threw up into that north wind?
Oh, it was
died.
It was a bia.
Yeah.
I better not.
Yeah.
What's our concern though?
The concern is, to me, is he's never recruited this area. And even him going up there and saying, I'm going to recruit Texas, I'm going to rely on Texas. Hey, now, I mean, are you sure about that? Are you sure you're going to get those? What kids are you getting from Texas? Are you getting the third and fourth choices of Texas Tech? Because what are we talking about here?
My concern is
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to pull kids up here that don't play down there. So I was a little bit taken aback by that part.
Well, if you get Dylan Raiola here,
yeah, he's from Arizona.
a lot of things come with him.
That's helpful. Yeah,
that's your best recruiter at that point.
yeah, you're right. But you're not gonna have Dylan Raiola forever.
My other concern would be, does he know what he's really walking into? It's all wine and roses and parades now. Mm-hmm. But a year from now,
here comes UCLA, USC.
No, but just the the true fishbowl of this place.
Oh, the place.
Everybody says they're ready for it. But how many people have you ever met that really could handle it?
Yeah, when the games get going, it's a little different situation. He seems cut out for it to me. He does seem cut out for it.
I mean, Scott Frost is from here, and he wasn't cut out for it.
But Frost is different.
Yeah.
Frost has a different personality.
He demanded privacy, and that was a hard thing in that role.
Out of the gate, he demanded privacy. Rule seems to have more of a warm personality, a welcoming personality. Frost, I'm not dogging Frost. I like Frost. I mean, I've known Frost since he was a player, and we've gotten along. I like him. But his personality is a little different. It's not as welcoming. It's not as warm. You got to really get to know him. And even if you get to know him, it's not terribly warm all the time. So Rule does seem to have it's just a personality. It's not I'm not casting aspersions towards Scott at all. It's just, I mean, I'm more like Scott than Rule. So I'm not criticizing him.
Like Scott was the type of guy that would go into Laszlo's through a back door.
Yeah.
I'm looking
and
at
Rule
would go through the front door.
I think so. Right now he would. He hasn't played any games yet. If they lose 5 in a row, is he coming through the front
And
door?
Laszlo's, I'm looking out our window here and seeing the Laszlo sign.
Yeah. I mean, that's some of it remains to be seen, but he definitely seems like a warm, welcoming personality.
Okay, I have a couple of questions about the quarterback room. So the first one is,
Okay.
who do you see transferring out and when?
Ooh. Well,
Good question, Abby.
okay,
There's 6 scholarship guys right now.
is anyone leaving before January 16th? I don't think so. I think everyone, at least today, stays pat because where are you going to go? You know, why would you leave a $50,000 financial situation when you don't know you have another one to transfer into? So
Unless they know.
unless they have something.
Yeah.
But
So we're talking about Richard Torres. Go from the bottom.
Richard Torres,
Heinrich Harbaugh.
Chubba Purdy, Logan Smothers, Casey Thompson.
Okay.
There's 5.
Now,
What if
Wait,
Sims?
I was just about to bring up Jeff Sims. Go ahead.
What if Sims is so good? Like he's the guy that's going to get guys to leave. That's why I didn't bring him up. What if he's so good during the spring? It's obvious he's a starter. Like, what's Casey do?
Sims will have to be really good to show that he's obviously better than Casey Thompson. Okay, I have my doubts about that. I saw Casey play.
That's going to get interesting. That dynamic. I mean, those guys aren't going to be going to lunch together.
I don't know.
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's going to get really, really competitive.
I'll tell you one thing I'm not doing is just assuming that Sims is better than Casey. I mean, there was a big drop-off from Casey to the backups last year. I mean, we saw Casey could handle that position pretty well, right?
Now, Logan Smothers, something to watch.
Am I wrong?
Yeah, oh yeah. But can he run and take the beating that you're going to need to do in this new offense?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good
He
question.
ain't 6'4", 220.
No, he's 5'11", 190. No, he's probably, I think they list him at 210 or 205.
Now, something to watch with Logan Smothers, he's got a red shirt, number 1, but he's got 2 years of eligibility left. So would he redshirt this year, get his degree, and move on, and then have 2 years to play still? Like, that's something to watch. Or if something favorable came his way in May, would he look at it? If he's not going to get a fair shake, because what kind of look is he going to get in the spring? He had shoulder surgery too.
Yeah, there's only so many snaps available. So when you got 6, like how many snaps are available for Logan Smothers, for Richard Torres, for Heinrich Harburg? Are they going to get a shot, a legitimate shot?
We know Sims in spring ball will get the 1 reps because the other guys are out.
Well, Casey's out
And Logan's out.
and Logan's out.
So the best question is, who gets the 2 reps?
Right now, would you say based on what you've heard and reported?
Harburg?
Harburg.
Yeah, Harburg.
Yeah. Harburg.
Where's Chubba?
Well, where's Chubba physically?
He's had a lot of 49ers games right now. I know that. I've seen him on TV, but
But where is Chubba physically?
his foot, his
He
ankle.
took that slide in Michigan and hasn't, we haven't seen him since. So I don't know where he's going to be. Is he available for the spring?
And then Torres is a wild card.
Big wild card.
Like he's got he might have the best arm of any of them.
Yeah. I hope Richard Torres is in a competitive mode. I hope he's saying, I can compete for this.
I like Richie. I mean, I hope he gets a fair shake.
Yeah.
All right, final question.
Your favorite Christmas gift you received this year?
Ooh.
Coffee maker.
What kind?
I don't even know what.
Like
kind
a
it is.
traditional one or like a K-cup one?
No, it's traditional.
Traditional?
Traditional, yeah.
I got a coat.
Coat.
That was my gift.
Nice. Coats last for a long time.
Nice. I actually brought it with me. Little Lululemon
Nice.
Fancy.
coat. I can wear it. I got a lot of crap for my gloves I wore on high school state football. So I had these running mitts.
Yeah.
And they're from the men's section, but they had like little white marks on them.
Yeah, those are questionable.
And they're questionable. And so I'm going to own the gloves and continue to wear them.
Okay, good. Yeah. Ooh, interesting.
I'm not going to let the internet win.
Wow, Sean. Abby, what'd you get?
Well, I got some great things, but my favorite thing was a pair of like UFO like shoes. Have you had those pair of shoes? They're like really cushiony, I would say. They have a high arch. They're like the most comfortable pair of shoes I ever got. So I'm very excited.
Well, that is exciting. I'm not patronizing you. That is exciting.
I love shoes.
Yeah.
It's hard to get to buy gifts now. I mean,
I'm pretty good at it.
you're pretty good at it.
I prided myself on that.
Like, what did you get your dad?
I got my dad a expensive bottle of scotch, but the key is I got him this lawn ornament thing that I saw at this little shop in South Lincoln, where it's like a Santa. Think about a real estate sign in a yard that you put in a yard, but it's a Santa. I thought it was, and I got them for a lot of people.
Your dad?
They're like $100 each. And I got them for a bunch of different people. You can, yeah. This is a great gift. Nobody has them. Maybe they don't want them, but I thought they were great gifts. I got them for myself.
We got a ping pong table too.
Oh, that's fun. The girls can whip you.
Yeah, and we had
Carly will be able to beat you here pretty quick.
They got to learn, but yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, that's good. No, they'll be fighting pretty soon. Some of our most epic fights in our family with the three boys were ping pong related. I mean, it got vicious.
Talk smack when you win.
Yeah, or you lost, and it was controversial, and then a major league fight would ensue, and pretty soon my dad would have us out in the yard hosing us off, and yeah, it got wild.
All right, when we come back, we're going to close the show. Big Ten bowl games. Wisconsin's already played.
Yeah, we got to talk about that.
Luke Fickell coached. We'll give our thoughts on that next. You're listening to Husker Online Show.
This is HuskerOnline.com, your authority on Nebraska athletics.
Final segment here at the Husker Online Show. Sean Callahan, Steve Sipple bringing you home on this kind of probably the most non-productive week, Sipple, of the year, by far.
What do you mean?
Well, in between Christmas, New Year's, like who's actually working this week?
Well, I wish I could say I was working a little harder. You're my boss. But I was working. We're working right now.
Well, yeah, we're working, but in general, most Americans are.
It's a strange week, right? It's a limbo week.
They're either stranded on a Southwest Airlines flight somewhere, or working.
Yeah, or they work part of the week. You get a lot of that.
You get 2 or 3 days in.
Yeah.
But what was working last night was Wisconsin.
That's right.
They played. Luke Fickell was working last night. The new Badger head coach, and the Badgers beat Oklahoma State 24-17. I watched the whole game. My dad went to the game. How about that?
Well, first of all, that's amazing because that game started like at 9:15 p.m. You stayed up the whole time?
I was really interested in that game.
Okay,
just because I wanted to see Luke Fickell and what he brought. I was fascinated that he was coaching, like in the lead role over Jim Leonard.
Yeah, and this was the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. I have some questions for you. How was the crowd?
Well, I don't know what the announce was, but it was fair. I mean, it was in the Diamondback Stadium, the baseball stadium. The footing was terrible. Like they put like a surface over the baseball diamond, and it was terrible footing. Like there were moments where like guys just fell down.
What struck you was something that is sort of cliche, but it's real, and that is the Big Ten bullied the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, let's call this what it is. That's probably the worst Wisconsin team in 15 years.
7-6. 7-6.
Like that is the worst Wisconsin team since like the late 2000s probably. I don't know what their records were at the end of Alvarez, at the beginning of Bielema, but that's probably when they had a team one year that went to a bowl game and beat Miami. They were 6-6 that year, I think, too.
Okay, let's put it this way. the Badgers, in finishing 7-6, avoided the program's first losing season since 2001.
So you look.
First, that would have been their first losing season since 2001.
They were playing without Graham Mertz at quarterback. Braylon Allen was still dinged up. Like he kept coming in and out of the game with his shoulder or whatever injury he's still battling from the Nebraska game. So this was not like a well-oiled Wisconsin team. And they just, for the most part, manhandled Oklahoma State.
Well, they
manhandled them.
Yeah. Now, Oklahoma State comes in. Now, think about it. Oklahoma State comes in ranked 96 nationally against the run. Okay, and they're missing several key starters. So what's Wisconsin do? They just roll up the run. They just roll the run game up. 47 attempts, 258 rushing yards for Wisconsin. Bullied the Big 12 team. Meanwhile, the Big 12 team, also 7-6, can't run the ball against them.
Like Mike Gundy
couldn't run the ball.
He looked disengaged the whole game. Like he just kind of didn't look like, it's almost like he knew like we're not a good matchup in this game.
Well, he was missing a bunch of guys.
Yeah,
he was missing
their quarterback
and their top running back. So, and all those guys on defense. So yeah,
let's put it this way: DeAndre Jackson, who Nebraska turned away. Remember that whole
wait a second,
that running back from A&M when Parker and I
yeah,
and everyone, like, there were people on like Twitter, like this Husker one guy that went after me that I falsely reported that DeAndre Jackson wasn't coming. He didn't come to Nebraska.
Right.
He was playing in this game
for Oklahoma State.
Oklahoma State.
How'd that look?
He did not look good.
Really didn't look good.
Yeah, I mean they couldn't do anything. Oklahoma State was 0 of their first 10 on third down. 0 of 10 on their first 10 third downs.
They were in the game though. I mean, they lost 24-17. They had the ball late.
The time of possession going into the fourth quarter, Wisconsin had a 20-minute advantage. It was like 32-13.
Yeah. Well, they bullied them.
In
Fickle coaches and is elated. He was elated with the outcome and elated with the 3.5 weeks that he has spent there.
It was kind of interesting though, like that Jim Leonard had to like be in the back seat.
I know.
I mean, really awkward.
Really awkward. It is.
Imagine a bowl game right now in Nebraska. That Rule would be in this role, and like Mickey.
Right.
I mean, we're doing a lot of imagining right now because Mickey wouldn't be able to coach. But imagine Mickey having to like be in the background.
Oh, it'd be awkward.
And Bill Bush be in the background. Yeah. I mean, it would have been interesting.
Yeah, it would have. But it was Jim Leonard. Let's be clear. Jim Leonard thought he was going to be the head coach of Wisconsin until he wasn't. I mean, until this Fickle thing came out of kind of nowhere.
He showed up to the church in his tuxedo on the day of the wedding, and then found out,
yeah, you're not getting married.
You're not getting married today.
Yeah, somebody else is here. It's a terrible analogy, but anyway,
it's a good analogy. Actually, okay. I thought it was pretty good.
Okay, it's not terrible, but anyway, yeah, Luke Fickle just was. He said it's been a great 3.5 weeks, and that he was pleased. He said the attitude on the sideline was great. And again, I'm a very much a bowl proponent, even though I haven't watched one this year. This is 7-6 Wisconsin team that goes into the offseason feeling very good because they were victorious in a bowl.
And Luke Fickle has something to build on now.
Absolutely,
like he can take a little credit for it.
Yeah, he said that.
And Jim Leonard's gone, right? He's leaving.
Yeah, he won't be around. He coached his last game as a defensive coordinator at Wisconsin.
Because they're bringing in Tressel from Cincinnati, Mike Tressel.
No, Leonard coached his last game there.
And then the North Carolina OC is coming to Wisconsin.
And we'll see what that looks like.
Air raid guy.
Yeah, we'll see on that, though,
yeah.
right? We'll see on that.
See if Barry's a big fan of that.
Yeah, I don't know what that's going to look like.
And then
I'm sort of, I'll believe it when I see it, that they're throwing the ball around the yard, I'll believe that when I see it.
And Michigan also playing in Phoenix. My dad was down, he lives down there. He said he saw the Michigan buses driving around down there too. And so they'll play TCU in Phoenix as well.
Yeah, Saturday afternoon.
And then you'll have Ohio State, Georgia.
Huge Saturday. I mean, must-see TV in both counts. I mean, yeah, I don't assign me anything on Saturday. I got to watch those.
How
games.
big is this game for Ryan Day? Because it feels like things have like slipped for him.
Well, I had Bill Bender. I talked to Bill Bender today. Bill Bender, who works for the Sporting News. Bill Bender, who lives right outside of Columbus, and he said 50% of the Ohio State fan base is out of sorts.
Like if
they're the college football playoff, by the way, and they've won 11 games, and they're out of sorts.
If they get boat raced by Georgia, like what's that look like?
Pressure on Ryan Day.
Like, is he coaching like the Eagles next year or something?
No, I don't know about that, but there's pressure. I mean, losing Dylan Raiola was rough, but losing to Michigan back to back.
Not just losing.
Yeah,
getting rammed.
Right. Now you're playing a Georgia team that's capable of ramming you. I mean, it's capable of winning by 21. Beating you by 21. Oh, it's huge. It's a huge game for Ohio State.
I think Michigan, maybe I'm way off on this. I think they handled TCU.
I just disagree with you completely. I think that game's going to go down right to the wire.
To the last minute.
TCU is a strong team. I mean, they're one of the strongest teams in the country. They're very physical. They will not be pushed around by Michigan, Sean. If Michigan wins it all, it'll be late. I'm
just still envisioning Oklahoma State trying to go short yardage goal line on Wisconsin last night.
I don't think it's the same. I think I think that TCU now, I do have memories of them trying to run the ball in against Kansas State. They couldn't do it. But TCU prides itself on toughness. They're not a typical Big 12 team in that regard. They're a physical Big 12 team.
Oklahoma State, the last night in that game, they had 2 plays like on the goal line.
Yeah,
and they tried to like go heavy. I mean, it was like a little Ford Ranger pickup truck trying to drive through 18 inches of snow. Okay. I mean, it just wasn't happening.
I get you but now think about TCU, the picture with that big quarterback they have,
Duggan.
From Council Bluffs. That's a big quarterback. That's a Frost. Watch him play quarterback. It reminds you of Frost playing quarterback. I'm telling you, TCU is physical. I've watched them twice. They will not back down to Michigan. Michigan's going to do that bully thing with their big ornery offensive line. They'll try it, but TCU's going to hang in there. And I don't know. I like the TCU quarterback better than the Michigan quarterback.
It'll be I mean, these are great games.
They are. They're fascinating games. They're fascinating.
All right, well, lots to talk about. We'll talk more about those games next week, and Robin will be back with us. We'll talk some hoops as they got a big game with Iowa and some other games coming up. But thank you for joining us here on a special holiday edition of the Husker Online Show.
Thanks again for joining us this week on Husker Online, your authority on Nebraska athletics.